Hello? Anybody there? Okay, looks like we're starting a new live stream, unfortunately. The first one failed. So hopefully you guys can get me. Yeah, and there's the damn logo again. Okay, there's Insectoid. Everybody sound off, if you're online or not. Okay, so it was going well until all of a sudden my internet went out and I had to go up to my second house across the yard to refix the wires. So yeah, we're going to be starting a new live stream, unfortunately. Really sucks, to be quite frank. And we barely even got into the movie before things were starting to go haywire. So yeah, this is just fantastic. You know, I think in the future I'll just do these live watches on like Discord and record them, and then edit them down, and then do like a better version of it later. But yeah, I don't know if this is a YouTube problem or anything else, but yeah. Oh, great. Now the live stream says this. Oh, unsupported resolution. Great. Hold on. Okay. Can you hear anything? Hello. Microphone, everything's okay there? Yes, okay. You can hear something. There's a third person. Okay, everybody, we're back online, unfortunately, although YouTube says, yeah, this stinks. Okay, so I'm going to try to... Hello yourself. Okay, so where did we leave off? It was just after the music with Godzilla vs. Hedorah was playing. I'm gonna close up some windows here. Maybe that'll help a little bit. But yeah, I'm so sorry for the nonsense that we just all went through right here. So yeah, this sucks. We're doing really good. I'll talk about the howling another time, but right now I'm just trying to get my bearings to start the live stream. Yeah, everybody who was watching is now all gone. This stinks. Okay, great. Oh, God. And I'm terrible at multitasking, so I'm literally lost at the moment here. Okay. Insectoid Comics, do you mind if we start again from scratch as far as the watch-along goes? Okay, I'll wait for your answer. Okay, because I think that might be the best way to go right now, especially since everything went a little out of sync recently. Okay. Do. Alright. Yes, I was just about to ask for that. Okay, excellent. We'll just start a new live stream. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like this is going to be starting way later than I wanted it to. So, there's 4 people here. Hopefully, Rift the Witch, you're still here. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Every time we try to do a live watch, whether it's on my channel or Brenzant Films channels or Kaiju Noir, this has happened. So, and I don't know what's going on. Everything was working perfectly up until this unfortunate point. So, all right, I'm going to contact some friends on Facebook with this new live watch. We're going to be starting again very soon. Okay. Started a new live stream. Check my YouTube page. Started a new live stream. Okay. All right, 12:28. Okay. 12:28. I don't know. I'm tempted just to start the movie from scratch, but if you want to do the 12:28 point where everything stopped, I'll let you decide that, Insectoid Comics. We either start from the beginning and just redo the last first 12 minutes, or we just start at whatever. I can't think straight for nothing. Oh god, and it was doing so well too. I just had a really good recurring commentary, so. No, it's 12:28 where I'm at. Okay. Oh, okay. Then I'll let you. You can either start at the beginning or you can meet with us. So. I'm just seeing. Well, okay, I'll just ask you this, Insectoid. Do you want to start from the beginning or you want to. It's 29 now. Let's start from scratch. Okay, that's probably the best way to go about it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully more people come aboard. We're going to start from the beginning again. So. Okay, it sucks so well. We're doing so well at the beginning, and then this all happened. And I don't know, maybe it was... I did not get any... Yeah. Breathe, Raph. Stop being all terrified. So... Okay, I'm just going to have one title card play. And then when I do the edited version, I will have all the different title cards play along. So yeah, we're just going to stick to this one title card for the day. So... Oh my goodness. I'm terrible at this. Freak Show. Freaked versus Howling 6. Okay. Never seen any of those movies. Well, I saw Freak, but... Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Right, we got 3 people watching right now, so... We're going... So, yeah. We're gonna start from scratch. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So, we are going to be... darn it. Alright, so open the link in the description below to the Internet Archive, and we'll start at 0. Okay, so is everybody who is there ready to watch? Okay, we'll be starting in 3, 2, 1, play. Alright, there's the Toho logo going up right now. I'm going to lower the volume a little more. So hopefully YouTube doesn't get any trouble. Okay, it's fading to black. And there is Decimated Tokyo. Or whatever. Nasty, ugly, horrible Tokyo. Alright, so wait. I have a disc. I have to wait. Okay, I'll let Oh, darn it. Okay, I'm on 33, 31, 30, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. Does that help at all? Okay. Anyways, just let me know when you have the movie going. I'll let you know what point I'm on. So, because we already did the first 12 minutes, and that was excellent commentary in its own right. Yeah, I think I'm going to do an edited version where I just combine everything. So, that'll come in later. So, I'm so sorry for all the technical difficulties, everybody. It's like everything was going great. Insectoid Comics, whatever. Can't skip, that's a problem. Okay. Alright, I want you to enjoy this with me since you're going to be staying up late. So what I'm going to do is let me know when you're ready and then we'll start from 0 again. How about that? Damn cheap DVD. So I wonder if this is the Kraken release. Just go ahead and start from the beginning. Okay, now. Alright. And let me... Hold on. Oh, okay. The Kraken. Are we back? Yes, Riff. We are back. Okay. Well, I read it. We are restarting at 0. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, okay. Starting. Hello, everybody. All right, I'm going to count to 3, and then we're going to start our DVDs. So, or the link in the description below. So, right, I'm good. Oh. Thanks. All right, all set. Excellent. Okay, everybody, take 2. All right, in 3, 2, 1, play. Okay, so the Toho logo is coming up. I'm on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. All right, so, okay, even though when I did audio commentary for the first 12 minutes, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these failed live streams and do like an edited podcast version, combining them together. It's going to be a little difficult to keep everything in sync, but I think that might be the best way to go. So I utterly love this opening imagery, by the way, with Hedorah just coming out of the ocean like that, our main villain. And it's very reminiscent of the Umibuzu from Japanese mythology. So, Godzilla versus Hedorah. Copyright something in the little corner there. 166657. Okay, and we have that wonderful psychedelic opening. Okay. Give me a time to fix the hot dogs. Oh, by all means, just let the movie play if you want to go get some hot dogs. So, alright, 11, 12. Where have they gone? Mercury, cobalt, cadmium, lead, sulfur acid, oxidants, something, something. Lord, this is going to the end. Okay, so the movies are more or less in sync right now. I will start a commentary in a little bit. God is dead. Oh, return. I always think they say God is dead, but it's just the Japanese word for return. Okay, I got the DVD and... Oh, excellent. The DVD and the Internet Archive are going at the same time. All right, the sea has cobalt. It's full of mercury and too many fumes in our oxygen. That's right, Riff. But yeah, one thing I was going to say about this movie is that, yeah, it's very much a product of its time. It's very 70s-ish. But at the same time, it's not overly dated. This isn't an episode of the Brady Bunch where it's like, oh god, this screams wholesome suburban 1970s, or like a lot of movies based around disco. Even though I personally love disco, and I love the imagery with the clock here, just as the credit sequence ends. It's almost like we're running out of time, literally, by having a clock float in toxic waste. So now we are in beautiful Japan, so to speak. And here's our lead hero, Ken. I really hope nothing technically bad happens, because I have both movies perfectly in sync right now on both my internet and on my DVD copy. So I'm excited now. I'm praying to the goddesses of internet media. Please don't let this ruin. So now, I'm not a big fan of vinyl toys, but I gotta admit those are some really cool looking figures. And it's funny, too, because these toys would be extreme collector's items today, but here's Ken just sliding them off a slide. So, do you like Godzilla? I like Superman, too. Of course, if this was the Tetra Studios AIP dub, it'd be like, Superman beats them all. It's okay to love more than one character, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have to make this Batman v Superman. We can have Batman and Superman making out in the back of Wonder Woman's car. So, okay. Insectoid says, even though this is my least favorite Showa film, it's still good. Overall, it has a very relevant message. Okay, sorry about that, buddy. Okay. Some kind of strange fish that looks very weird to me. Of course, the subtitles you're probably all watching is not the same that I'm used to, so. Now I think this is really cool, where it's just like a day in the life where everybody, are just kind of just hanging out, enjoying each other's company, and then suddenly, like, an acquaintance of theirs, an old fisherman, shows up with this weird creature in it, and it's very much like the '60s Japanese monster movies, where a mysterious mystery starts on a very small level and then gets bigger and bigger. Although most Japanese monster movies opened up with like a big, awesome, spectacular action sequences. We had the big musical number that opened up this movie. This is good enough, but this is very reminiscent of like old episodes of Ultra Q. But we don't waste time waiting for the monster reveal, because there's our boy Hedorah. And this is probably one of the best looking examples of the big pool that's ever been used, at least for me in the Showa era, because they don't show the sky mat. Although at the same time, where is this being filmed? Is there a cameraman with extremely long legs looking down at the ship disaster? Or is there a helicopter filming this? But no, this sequence with the attack on the ships is actually one of the better big pool sequences done at Toho. And I just love that photo, like, oh, this is our enemy, ladies and gentlemen. Even as a baby, Hedorah is evil. So, I was going to say, in Ultra Q, they would set up the mystery and gradually go into the story until we get to the big giant monster reveal. It's not as bad as, say, most Ultramans where, like, say, episodes of Ultra 7 or Ultraman where the monster shows up in the last 3 minutes. But yeah, we're really kind of cutting the fat and going straight to the monster introduction here, aren't we? So, alright. Actually, our girl Hedorah. Riff the Witch says that Hedorah might be apparently Showa Hedorah is a lady. I don't know about that. I think Hedorah is more of a genderless alien creature, an elemental born of mineral filth and waste. But if it might have, or you might be referring to her Hedorah's eyes, which are based on female genitalia. So, but we'll see. I love Hedorah's design, says Insectoids. It's just a kid. The kid is kind of annoying. To be honest, he's not one of the worst, for me at least. And I've seen a lot of Kennys, especially with the Gamma projects we've been doing lately. I've seen way worse examples of Kennys or little kids in Japanese monster movies. And I don't mind Ken in this one. So, who ironically is just a couple of words away from being Kenny. And here we have some beautiful underwater shots. You don't really see much underwater kaiju action go on in Showa era films. And when they are done, they're not really all that well done. Like Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, I think, was the first time we saw an underwater battle with Godzilla. But it wasn't very well executed. That's why I think most of the battles happened above ground, like two battling kids in a kids pool. No, here we got some very moody sequences. Now I have to wonder if this is all model props that they just threw at the bottom at the last minute, or if this really was filmed in Tokyo Bay and it was that filthy. Although that looks a little too sparse and clean to be natural trash. And yes, I do agree, this is very haunting. Ken just being a kind of curious but ultimately destructive kid, and then he discovers all the mussels or clams on the shore are dead, along with all the crabs here. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's kind of a harbinger of the horror that's about to come. That's not no. When you see this sequence in widescreen with the not so large tadpole Hedorah swimming towards Ken, it's not very realistic with the cut screen there. So. And this is probably a weaker version of Hedorah, because had this been an adult Hedorah, Ken, poor Ken would have been disintegrated just by standing so close to this horrible thing. So, alright, according to Riff the Witch, the art director for Final Wars explains that the Hedorah in that movie is male and the red patching is a form of sexual dimorphism. That's interesting. I did not know about the Final Wars possibility. Of course, I would make the argument that Final Wars and the original Godzilla vs. Hedorah exist in completely different continuities, or as the nerds would say, universes. So, I don't think they're the same Hedorahs. I like to think the first Hedorah in this movie is definitely a purely alien, genderless creature. But in Final Wars, considering that almost every creature was like an unnatural byproduct of evolution and warfare, that supernatural and alien monsters were pretty sparse. We have a new person in the commentary, Godzilla King of Kaiju. Hey, buddy. We are doing a live watch of Godzilla vs. Hedorah, And the tadpole Hedorah is menacing Ken, the little boy's father, right now. What minute are we on? If you want to join us, there is a link inside the subscription. But yeah, that's the point that we are in right now. So, and it's 9:35, 9:36, 9:37, 9:38. So that's where we're at right now. And this scene always freaked me out as a kid. Just this I know giant monsters are not as intimate horror-wise as, say, a slasher or a vampire or a zombie. But the idea of being this defenseless, lone little mortal being stalked by something massive is pretty terrifying in its own right. It's pure nightmare fuel. But it's made even worse when you're in an alien environment as alien to a human being as the ocean. And there's so many beautiful pieces of otherwise terrifying artwork I see on DeviantArt all the time of little humans being menaced by these giant sea monsters deep beneath the ocean. And the way, as we know, nature is more of a slaughterhouse than a zoo. So yeah, a lot of those poor divers aren't going to survive. Now, had the movie chosen to kill the father right here and now, it would have opened on a very downbeat ending. But he barely survives his encounter with Hedorah. And I think that's kind of an interesting element. Because there's plenty of monster movies where we kill off a family member at the beginning to raise the stakes. But the fact that they allowed the father to live here, I think it's far less of a cop-out than it is just an interesting story twist and character progression, especially for our lead scientist father here, who will eventually be very significant in the ultimate defeat of Hedorah. So, and also I think that's generally good makeup effects they did with his skin. I know later in the film we're going to see that Hedorah has the ability to disintegrate human beings with his toxic waste, basically reduce him to bone. Here, though, I can't tell if his face is partially inorganic or scarred or something, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it would be like a freshly burned scar with acid or something. It may heal over time, but it's a pretty decent makeup effect, as simplistic as it is. So, okay, let's see what you guys... Godzilla vs. Godzilla King of Kaiju. Godzilla vs. Hedorah didn't scare me as a kid. I'm surprised that it didn't, because looking back, it's kind of horrifying. It is pretty horrifying. Okay, and what else do we have? Rift the Witch. Oh, this is the first of our animated sequences. And yeah, the idea of having animated sequences in a monster movie might seem well, but as a stylistic choice that kind of explains exposition through purely visual means, I think it's very interesting. I wouldn't mind if seeing more like this happen. And with his drunken theme song, we have Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Not very well superimposed against the setting sun, but it's still a very memorable sequence. And that's the thing about the Godzilla franchise. Don't you love that Godzilla always comes in and makes an entrance? Even something as simple as this, of just him showing up in front of the, just in front of the sun. Now, I don't know if this is the big pool again, the one that was in the Toho backlot. It may also just be a brand new large pool they may have made, just because the ocean water is moving a little too smoothly than it usually did in the big pool. So I'm guessing maybe this is even a smaller miniature. And of course we have the underwater sequences with the black sludge, superimposed probably. There's no way in hell they probably would have done that to poor real fish. Especially since the smoke effect is basically the same shape, destroying all beneath it. So, yeah. Oh god, I wish I had Patrick Galvin here to explain some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, okay, let's see. Rift the Witch lines up with a cartoon depicting Hedorah as very feminine. That is true. Which suits me fine. Female characters rarely get to be gross and vulgar. That is a good point. So Gigan versus Hedorah, inserting a concept, tech versus pollution. I think Hedorah might have a chance against Hedorah, but barely one. I already read that one. Rift the Witch. The professor, him surviving, makes narrative sense. It gives him an intimate relationship with the monster, making his knowledge of how to defeat Hedorah feel more natural. Thank you, Rift the Witch. You said it better than I could. So... okay, I unironically love the Godzilla theme in this movie, Rift the Witch says. Damn cheap keyboard. Same, says Insectoid Comics. The animation is cool. Godzilla King of Kaiju, I'm pretty sure that all the Godzilla entrances are epic. Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a bad Godzilla entrance. Even when it's just his foot appearing in the middle of a destroyed airport in 2014. Now, I don't know if Godzilla burning pollution floating on the surface with atomic nuclear breath is going to make the problem better or worse. But I don't know. At this point, Godzilla was so close to becoming a full-blown superhero. I don't know. It's so strange. It's like, I think that's why I think Gamera is a slightly better hero material than Godzilla, because Gamera just lives off pure plasma. And there goes the makeup effects, as our professor friend is now fully covered. So, Insectoid Comics, you idiot, you're killing thousands of fish. I agree. You suck, Godzilla. We love you, but you suck. Okay. All right. And this is our first reveal about Hedorah not being a living creature. Him being dried out like this. And that's a very good effect. I don't know how they are able to accomplish that, but it must have been like one of those props where it was so fragile that, you know, I hope they had some backups, because had that broke before filming. But no, that's really well done. I'm not too sure about the silver little eyeballs they add to the tadpole, but maybe that's a bit of a freak out for the audience, thinking that it's still kind of a fresh corpse, so to speak. So, and here comes the wife. So, this is about to be 1 a.m. over at Insectoid Comics area. Well, you're up late with me, my friend. If Santa Claus shows up, we'll beat him up together. Well, mostly you. I can't magically go through the internet. Okay, so it's the same as diamonds and other crystallized carbons. It is kind of cool that even though Hedorah is a pollution monster, his basic form is a pure living mineral. And I always thought that was so cool, that he only ingests pollution to add to his original form. But that ultimately Hedorah is like less of a organic slime monster than he is sort of a gooey version of a stone giant, I guess is the best way to describe that. So, forgive me, I have a really terrible vocabulary. I wish this was a better audio commentary. And after the little freak out we had with the technical difficulties earlier. Now, for anybody who's joined us, I'm going to be reading the seconds where we're at. It's 16:45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. And this is oh my god. Even if you don't like this movie, there's a lot of really good technical and artistic stuff going on here. Like the fact that the two little bits of broken off Hedorah becoming tadpoles in their own. It's like, it's a very good effect when you just have that close-up with the test tubes. Of course, when you see them in the pantry dish here, it still looks good, even though that's probably being done with like optical animation. So yeah, there's actually a lot of really good technical stuff that goes on in this movie that it's like between the cheapness that the 70s Godzilla movies would be infamous for and the high quality of the 60s Showa era movies, I think Hedorah bridges that gap beautifully. So, although the close-up with the magnifying glass, that's obviously just a floating little silhouetted puppet. So, and it is kind of cool. It's like, you don't see, there's always the kind of scientific exposition sequences in monster movies, but here it's generally touched upon like kind of a wondrous discovery that our heroes are doing here. Of course, this is early Hedorah, so they have yet to see Hedorah's full horror, which is eventually going to be showing up soon. So, right. Insectoid Comics says, I said it once, I'll say again, Hedorah is the best of the 70s Godzilla monsters. Yeah, that is true. I love Mechagodzilla, Gigan, Megalon, Jet Jaguar, King Caesar, Titanosaurus, but I think Hedorah is definitely, like, it's a shame that this movie is relatively considered obscure, because I think Hedorah definitely accounts as being one of Godzilla's toughest opponents, and we'll see that definitely in the climax. Rift the Witch says, Hedorah is a mass of organs floating in a delicious rancid sludgy soup and wrapped up in a semi-permeable dried out crust. That's a good point of putting it. So, the way you put it, it's like I can imagine Hedorah just rubbing his chest. It's like, you know you want this, ladies and gentlemen. Alright. Oh god, the model effects here are just great. You know, especially when I was a kid, I was always inspired by this in Ultraman Towards the Future. Whenever a giant sea monster swims up and creates those wonderful slow ripples, I would do that all the time in my own personal pool in the backyard. back when I was a kid, especially when it was getting dark and we had like a green outdoor light. It's like, I think we would play Godzilla versus whatever spooky sea monster here with me and my brothers. And this is one hell of a nightclub. It's funny, I've never seen any nightclub in real life as good as that they look in movies, even in a supposedly low-budget Japanese monster movie like Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Of course, being Godzilla fans, we all know that these movies were definitely far from B-movie features. These were basically foreign A pictures that were only released in America as B pictures. So, but their production values are really good. So, and that's our lead heroine. I keep forgetting her name. So unfortunately, again, that's the problem with Godzilla movies. You might have these decent or pretty good human characters, but other than a handful of them, they tend to forget their names, especially when compared to the titular monsters that are Hedorah or Godzilla. So, don't go away, don't go. So, definitely the hippie influence going on here. But, you know, it's funny. My friend Brayton Connor, who writes and is the lead maker behind the Mystery Science Theater fan films we've done, he brings up a good point that there is an element in old Japanese monster movies that people tend to forget, and that's musical numbers. Big Broadway musical numbers. Although this one does feel organic. It's in a nightclub, and we cut back to Hedorah outside. It's not like other musical numbers in Toho movies where the whole movie and narrative stops just for the musical sequence. And I love that scene where the camera just instantly zooms into Hedorah as he jumps into the air. It's the kind of effect they used all the time in Japanese tokusatsu shows. Whenever a Japanese superhero jumped in the air, the camera would just zoom in to give the illusion that, you know, he's literally jumping past the camera. And Monty Python's Holy Grail did a similar effect, but it was just the boys on their knees and lifting up whenever they were gave the wrong answer to the fatal question. And of course, this is one of the most memorable sequences in the whole movie of Hedorah getting high off smokestacks. So, and it's just great. The design of the creature with the huge expressive eyes and the ability just to, it gives him character even knowing that he's not really much of a character. Well, he is much of a character. He's a sadistic little, simple-minded, horrible alien bastard, but the giant eyeballs and some of the little things they're able to get away with the personalities is great. And that's one of the things I've always enjoyed about Japanese monster movies. Like, these creatures may not be Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's monster, but they still give enough personality that you can, you know, relate with the characters, as opposed to American giant monster movies where, you know, it's just a monster or a wild animal with no personality whatsoever. Realistically, though, if giant monsters were real, they would not be as expressive or as emotive as Godzilla and Hedorah here. Both in the sequences are generally treated seriously and the sequences that are comical. And now there's Godzilla making his presence known. It's like, probably, I don't know what he's setting fire to, but it is kind of cool that he's getting Hedorah's attention. It's like shining a flashlight in a stoner's eyeball. Okay, let's see what the comments has. Okay, Kina the Kaiju says, Hedorah is a very interesting kaiju. I think that Toho should use him again. Maybe a Mothra versus Hedorah film. Oh, poor girl, she's going to have a hard time fighting him. That would be cool, to be honest. I would like to see Hedorah come back officially. And I was not at all happy with Final Wars, I'll say that. Insectoid sounds like an ad for a breakfast cereal. Riff the Witch says, pieces of her, Hedorah, could constitute a traditional slime monster, but there are more pieces that make up a whole. Yeah, and very much so, I think, yeah, Hedorah shares a lot with Destroyer in that same regard, and as well as, oh my god, that weird monster, Bela Lugosi, or that weird unmade monster was supposed to be the precursor to Destroyer, who felt like a cross between John Carpenter's The Thing and Hedorah. So, but I can't say that monster's name right now without leaving the stream. Okay, Insectoid Comic. Oh god, a tadpole. Well, actually, Gigan is my favorite monster, says Insectoid Comics. Oh, this is where I draw the line. This is too weird. Oh, it's just hippies at a discotheque. Insectoid Comics, thank you. Baru Baroi. I still can't say that. So, okay. Insectoid. Godzilla King of Kaiju. Godzilla is the police, and Hedorah is just caught smoking. Alright, so this is the first battle between Godzilla and Hedorah. Now, I do love how this movie... Not many Japanese monster movies show the consequences of, like, regular people being caught in the crossfire of a monster fight. The original Godzilla King of the Monsters, the 54 film, did a great job at showing the collateral damage monsters could do, but since then, it kind of just gets glossed over. Like, a monster destroy a building, but for all we know, that building is as empty as a model building. But here, just a little section of Hedorah just falls into these people's gambling den, who I don't think they were criminals. I think they were just having like a personal little gamble game. If they were doing illegal gambling, they definitely weren't like evil Yakuza types. And in most other monster movies, they probably would just get dirty or something. But here, their deaths are treated pretty gruesome. If this was like a movie like Deep Impact, though, a gruesome death would be treated for laughs. And if this was like a 1970s Godzilla movies, it would probably be equally treated humorously. Now here we go with the fish people, and apparently Shogo Toyama, no, not Shogo Toyama, the original producer of the Godzilla movies, Tomoyuki Tanaka, he came into the sequence when they were filming it, not having any idea what the context was, and he apparently left quietly. So that's something else. Apparently, from what I've heard, despite the fact that Tomoyuki Tanaka famously said you ruined Godzilla to Yasumitsu Banno after this film was fully completed and screened, that didn't exactly end a complete career with Yasumitsu Banno. It's like he still had some connection with a lot of the Godzilla films afterwards. But as far as him directing or manning a Godzilla movie like this, it never happened, which is a shame, because this is definitely way more ambitious than Godzilla vs. Gigan, and I'm one of the people who like Godzilla vs. Gigan. Okay, so... Now, if this was like a modern-day discotheque, the music would still be blaring. And I don't understand the kitty. Does anybody in the comment section want to share their theories on why Hedorah's sludge is powerful enough to murder a bunch of innocent human beings in a Mongjang room, but when a kitty gets caught up and it's apparently okay? I hope somebody took that kitty and washed them off with some Dawn soap or something. Or the cat's pretty much doomed. I don't know. So, and ironically, there was a monster in the Powerpuff Girls that was a giant, slimy, sickening monster, no different from Hedorah, who comically had a pet kitty. And I don't know if that was Craig McCracken or some of the other writers on Powerpuff Girls doing a slight reference to Hedorah through that monster. I know that there is a direct Hedorah reference in Powerpuff Girls in the form of Steve, who is actually a pretty nice guy once he stops destroying cities, but this was a different slime monster. Okay, Insectoid Comics, I'm officially a kaiju nerd. Welcome to the club. Riff the Witch says, cats are immune to acid because cats rhymes with hats. A pun? Really? And as the Guyver shows us, hats are also immune to acid. So... Okay, Godzilla, King of Kaiju, well, we probably wouldn't have gotten to the Monsterverse. That is true. Without Yasumitsu Banno, the Monsterverse would have never come about. So, his supposed failure on Godzilla vs. Hedorah led to the Monsterverse. So it's not at all bad. Godzilla just got hit by... for lack of a better term, acidic turds. Now, it's so funny, the concept of a quiet kaiju battle, one that no one else notices or hears from outside, it's highly unrealistic. I've seen enough disaster footage to know that even if you're like living miles away, you would hear massive explosions and movement like this. But here, it's like these monsters are having a fight, and meanwhile, the discotheque doesn't hear anything. Granted, though, it is a discotheque, so yeah, there's no way you could hear it. That's another interesting thing about Hedorah references in other Japanese media, or other fictional media. Digimon has this creature called Raymon, who is basically a Hedorah salute. It looks like Hedorah's tadpole form, just with a more ghastly face. And when it's first introduced in the first Digimon Adventures, or Season 1 of Digimon, guess what? It appears from the bay at night and attacks a discotheque. Of course, because the animation was so poor, we didn't get anything as elaborate as this. But It was obvious what they were referencing there. It was too much of a coincidence. So, and there's, even knowing Godzilla's radioactive breath has no effect on Hedorah, he still shows Hedorah who's in charge. It's like, yeah. You know, it's funny. I've never noticed on this HD screening of Godzilla vs. Hedorah all the sludge that Tadpole Hedorah has left on the ground. So that's a neat detail. I guess this is where Hedorah realizes he's playing dead and he's just going to leap away and get out of here. So, I think this is one of the few times in a kaiju movie the round one fight actually ends with the bad guy retreating, as opposed to the other way around. It's like usually Godzilla gets horrifically harmed, like in the 1974 Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, or in the Gamera movie where Gamera gets royally beaten to death whenever he meets anybody. So, all right. And there's Godzilla looking for Hedorah and then blowing. This is a great scene where Godzilla's just, it's late at night. There's a lot of good cinematography in this movie, too. It's very moody. It's very atmospheric, especially the nighttime sequences. And here's Godzilla just randomly firing his atomic breath in the ocean, hoping to get Hedorah, with this, like, wonderful dry ice steam effect happening at the same time. Now we're back to the second animation sequence, involving the Black Factory, I think is the name of this character. This is not an official monster because, again, it's a part of the animated sequences, but it is recognized as a kaiju through Toho merchandising, and there is actual ornaments that have been made of this character. So he counts as a kaiju, but he's so minor that it's a minor giant monster, basically. But it is cool that he has not been completely forgotten either. So, 35 people are dead and only an 81 injured. Okay, that's good for a giant monster fight scene in that close parameter. Taking a drink. Rift the Witch says, the stealthy night battle is stylish and moody enough to justify it. I agree. Godzilla, King of Kaiju. The Factory is a kaiju? Why am I finding about this now? Like I said, he's a very minor kaiju. It's like, you know how the Japanese just love to label every one of their monsters in their information book. And again, in the context of the movie, the Black Factory is not a real monster. It's just a bizarre creature that shows up in a hallucinatory effect sequence. Now, here's our human heroes driving down to where Godzilla vs. Hedorah had just battled. Thankfully, Godzilla and Hedorah probably destroyed the abandoned warehouse district of Suruga Bay. Oh my goodness. So there's no damage, but plenty of leftover Hedorah bits laying on the ground like this. So, I don't know. I don't know why. It's like the new MonsterVerse goes out of its way to show the devastation from a monster fight to the point that it gets a little ridiculous. Like, San Francisco is apparently no longer a valid area because it's been so granted, that's what would happen with monsters. But it still seems like a little bit like Michael Bay style apocalypsism. Where here, though, in these old Japanese monster movies, mankind is so used to giant monsters that, yeah, we do kind of brush it off a little bit. So let's see what's... I'm actually, speaking of the Black Factory, let me get the character's actual name so I can actually give it to you guys. So, because on Wikizilla, I was one of the main contributors to the list of Godzilla monsters, and in the miscellaneous section, the Black Factory is labeled. Well, let me get his actual official name here. Alright. Oh no, I don't want the list of Gamera monsters. I want the list of Godzilla monsters. And that is really cool that Hedorah reflects Godzilla's beams very much like the Super X does with its artificial mirror. So that is kind of cool. Okay. Right here in the miscellaneous section. Smog Factory. That's the official name of the weird little animated factory that showed up in the scene. So, Insectoid Comics, what was that noise? I do not know what you're talking about. Might have been something on my end. I got headphones on, so even though I have the TV playing the movie in the background. So, rip to Boston. Yeah, Boston got it pretty bad in King of the Monsters, Godzilla King of Kaiju. So, and also Insectoid brings up, what if we had a completely animated Godzilla film in that style? Well, I'm the biggest fan of the Yellow Submarine. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. And Japan did have some pretty interesting weird animated films happening in the late 60s and 70s. So I wouldn't mind seeing a Godzilla film in that regard. We almost had a bizarre animated Godzilla film. The director of Hausu, I forgot his name, but that weird movie about the house that eats the haunted house that comes to life and eats the little girls inside. Literally, violently, I might add. He wanted to do his own Godzilla movie called A Space Godzilla, but it's so weird that it's almost a podcast in its own right. So now, someone joined us in the chat area. Brandzant Films. I've never heard of this person. A factory is a monster? I will allow that. Rocks, on the other hand, are not monsters. That's a little joke going on between me and Brandzant Films, aka my friend Brayton, who enjoys musical numbers in Godzilla films. We're debating on the monolith monsters, and I'm starting to come to the conclusion, the monolith monsters do not really count as full-on kaiju, but it's nice that he's not saying the same about the smog factory here. Insectoid Comics says, May, my internet is buggy. I may disappear. That's okay. Just pray that my internet doesn't go out, and then whoever joins us here enjoys it. Insectoid Comics says, a Space Godzilla was a cool idea. I do agree, although I'm glad that there's a lot of Godzilla movies that aren't connected to one another, that are all continuity one-shots. Yeah, and in that case, a Space Godzilla would probably work in that regard. But yeah, that it would have been a very weird movie, but that's a whole different podcast in its own right. These are really good photos of outer space. I don't know. These are probably not recreations, but I don't. Again, so many great visuals in this movie, even if it's just something simple as like star charts being shown. And now we're coming to one of the more infamous sequences in the whole movie, Hedorah's first serious attack on the public. Starting with something as innocent as everybody going to the amusement park. So, and on one of these, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I've ever been on a roller coaster, because roller coasters scare the crap out of me. Roller coasters scare the shitiki mushrooms out of me. Okay. Insectoid Comics, I don't know it was going to be animated. It was going to be a combination of live action, but I think the giant monster bits in A Space Godzilla were planned to be done through stop motion. And I think they even made a prototype stop motion puppet. If you dig deep enough in the internet, you'll find it. And then Insectoid Comics says the Dark Nebula, home of the side wraiths. So I don't know what side wraiths are. Okay. Rest in peace to Boston. Yeah, that's. Do you come from Boston, Kina Kaiju? So. Insectoid Comics. Disneyland is in league with Hedorah. I don't think Hedorah enjoys amusement parks, period. So. And the fact that the explosion happens off camera. I forget, in the Japanese version, they deliberately choose to keep a lot of sound effects muted for artistic purposes, whereas in the American AIP release, which is also a pretty good version on its own right, with a much stronger American dub, they added a lot of special effects and music back in, just to kind of, I guess, to make the movie less weird. And here's our mother character doing outdoor exercise. Thankfully, Hedorah doesn't fly so close that these people get disintegrated. So, unless you count that zoom in, then yeah, Hedorah seems to get a little too close. Rare examples of stop motion or time-lapse photography in a Godzilla film to show the plants dying. You know, I totally forgot. I thought these were like adult women and this was like a sort of outdoor class. But yeah, no, these are like teenage girls. The mother was exercising. So she's a coach. That's an element you forgot. The father's a scientist. The mother is a school gym teacher. That's interesting. I forgot about that. Oh, and this factory explosion here is fantastic. It's one of the best model explosion sequences I think the 70s Godzilla movies had to offer. But then again, the pyrotechnic artist working on the 70s Godzilla movies was a madman who loved blowing crap up, and he did a fantastic job in it. And with the film motion going slowly, it's fantastic. It just looks beautiful, the black smoke and all. Now, this scene has always confused me, and I've never heard an official explanation. But apparently the Hedorah that is grabbing the car right now with its gooey tendrils is not the same Hedorah that's flying around and causing mayhem. This is a secondary Hedorah, possibly born from the leftover sludge at the discotheque, eating up cars and getting a little stronger before it remerges with the main creature. At least that's what I heard, but it's never made up coherent in the movie itself. And I just figured Hedorah quickly turned back to his land form to guzzle up some cars. I also have to wonder if there was any innocent people that guzzled up alongside the cars, which is pretty terrifying if you think about it. Now, from what I understand, Flying Hedorah is supposed to be based on a deep-sea fish. I don't know which one. I think it's one of those flatfishes or something, but it's a really cool design for a flying monster without just, putting wings on Hedorah, just turning Hedorah into this flying, weird saucer-type creature, based on sea life, of course. I love how Hedorah is not an earthly creature whatsoever, but he does mimic various earth-based monsters. And it's a great-looking prop, too. So there's so much about this movie I love. A manta ray. Thank you, Insectoid Comics. I always thought it was like one of those bottom-feeding flatfish. But yeah, no, it was a manta ray. And I do remember the art director and effects artists have confirmed that on numerous occasions. So, Riff the Witch says, the American version still has a completely soundless bit where the buildings collapse. Oh, this bit. Yeah, as a kid, this movie really... Like, today we can appreciate the dark elements of the movie, but it may not terrify us. But as a kid, this stuff was really creepy. Because I was used to giant monsters knocking over buildings. I wasn't used to giant monsters just showing up and killing people right there and then. So, Godzilla Kina Kaiju says, I thought there were two Hedorahs. I think there is, but like I said, they don't make it clear in the movie. And I don't think they really... I have never heard an official source for it. And okay, here comes the great sequence where Hedorah flies through a bunch of construction girders and beams and just passes through a pretty decent optical effect. Now, I swear in the AIP version, Rift the Witch, when the building falls apart due to Hedorah's anti-steel destroying abilities, there is sound effects added, but in the Japanese version, they keep it quiet, so... Anti-Hedorah oxygen masks, now on sale! So, I know that the floating Hedorah was probably supposed to represent the kind of advertisement balloons that were very popular in Japan during the 60s. But as a kid, I always figured it was Hedorah being a con artist and selling oxygen masks back to the very people he's been menacing. So, Hedorah's a jerk. So, I love Hedorah, though. He's a very awesome monster. Alright. Insectoid says, I didn't see this as a kid. I did see Destroyer. That stopped my Godzilla growth for a while. Riff the Witch says, nope, my boyfriend streams that version all the time. Okay. This isn't... Okay. Alright, if you've seen the movie recently, then I think you're... I will not say otherwise. It still stays silent. So... I'm gonna have to pull out my VHS version of the AIP version of Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Godzilla vs. Smog Monster to see if there is a difference or not. I owe you a Coke, Riff, if I fail. If I'm wrong. It's funny how the family got out of it with minor injuries. And yet, it's so many dead people. 1,600 dead. And again, these animation bits, I think it really does add to the style of the movie. Unfortunately, a lot of people find these animation bits very alienating and just out of nowhere. And it also doesn't help that, I hate to say it, because these are Japanese monster movies, a lot of American audiences are already distantly removed from any relatability because, oh, it's a spooky foreign movie from from another country outside, or God bless America, and, you know, that kind of terrible mentality. And I really would like to get into the psychological, cultural reasons on why America has always been kind of anti-foreign film. And it just can't just be the subtitles, although that probably helps. And it could also relate to, like, the CIA's cultural experiments back in the 60s during the Cold War. But yeah, it sucks that a lot of people just can't get into Japanese monster movies, not because of the subject matter. They don't even give it a chance because, by its very nature, it's foreign and hence it shouldn't be respected or watched. And with that says, there was a book from the 70s called The Golden Turkey, The Worst Movies Ever Made. And they actually labeled Godzilla vs. Hedorah as one of the worst movies ever made. Those fools have not... There are way worse movies out there. Thankfully, way worse movies. The truly bad movies tend to get forgotten. It's like for every room, there's a billion worse independently made movies that could never reach cult status because they are that terrible. So for every found footage movie you hate, there are a billion more that are even worse. And I know Godzilla vs. Hedorah can be very decisive towards most audiences, but there is no way in heck, yeah, this movie is considered one of the worst films ever. Now here we are in the... Let me read some comments first. Insectoid Comics says, ROM Space Knight, and man, it's 1:20 where I am. So look on the bright side, at least it isn't 4 a.m. where you're at. So Rift the Witch, people who make lists like that don't see a lot of movies. Yes, absolutely true, Rift the Witch. So... people who don't watch Godzilla movies and Shakespeare are uncultured swines. Ah! These illustrations, by the way, of Hedorah, I know these aren't pre-production artwork they just repurposed for the film. It was made just for this sequence. And I wish there was like good scans as opposed to screenshots of these images of Hedorah's different forms, because those are some beautiful artwork. So I wouldn't mind those hanging in my room. Hedorah lives in a world in which no earthly creature can exist, a negative world of death. That is to say, it lives in sludge and polluted air. And so it's possible that oxygen might deter its growth. Give them oxygen! That'll do it! Yeah! Okay, let's see. In the comment sections... Insectoid Comics, Godzilla vs. Hedorah is not bad. Phantasm 3 is the S. Godzilla King of Kaiju. Nice to have you here, by the way, Godzilla King of Kaiju. It's sad that most Americans don't respect Godzilla because we only got the late 70s. That is true. Like, for the longest time, Godzilla vs. Hedorah was the most successful Godzilla movie in America. And as much as I do love Godzilla vs. Megalon, that is not a good gauge to decide the whole franchise upon. But at the same time, I'm so happy that the Godzilla franchise has so many movies. Again, a lot of really good artistic decisions. Like, it's weird that it's very true. This is definitely psychedelic cinema. But it just adds a lot of personality to this movie and gives it a kind of a nightmarish edge to the giant monster fantasy that's going on around here. I just love how the voices, not only, they get drowned out, but they just become this collection of chaotic colored squares just flashing on and off. So, Rift the Witch. I recall once finding myself on the 10 most ridiculously unscary monsters of the 50s videos. The ants from them and the Gillman were both on that list. Oh, that's ridiculous. The giant ants from them, despite being obvious giant puppets, are pretty damn terrifying. And the Gillman is a fantastic looking creature. So, even if they aren't that... There's, like, Tobanga the tree monster. Was he on the list? Oi. Insectoid Comics. I hate Phantasm 3. Rift the Witch says The Creeping Terror was not. Yeah, The Creeping Terror is a way worse movie. I know how much you like that movie personally for its vor elements. So, and Insectoid Comics says this is a good art house film. I wouldn't say it's a full-on art house film, but I do think it bridges a really good gap between the artistic and pop culture, pop action adventure. I think what this film is. Actually, I would love to see more artistic decisions in modern Hollywood films. It's like I love the Marvel movies, but you definitely do see a kind of play it safe formula with their execution. And it would be cool to get one that kind of plays into like the more fantastical elements and artistic directions. Unfortunately, I know I would have loved to have seen Ant-Man directed by Edgar Wright, but that's unfortunate. I don't think that will happen. On the other hand, I hope Edgar Wright returns to cinema in one form or another. Maybe a giant monster movie. That would be awesome. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of drink. I've seen a lot of Japanese films from the 70s, and they do go for artistic touches like that, but it usually ends up being too obnoxious and pretentious. And here, for some reason, Godzilla vs. Hedorah manages to mix the artistic with just a basic kids' adventure movie with a serious message. And then, of course, here's the rally of the go-go of 1 million. I thought 1 million people were coming. There's only 100. Why complain about it? Green pastures exist only in our hearts now. Let's sing and dance. Hold on. Let's send our energy into space. I got 2 different subtitles with 2 different things going on. So the Showa video version is what's being shown on archive.org, and the Sony... I know that the Sony DVD doesn't have the best subtitles, so I think I'm going to stick to the archive.org version as far as reading subtitles go. Okay, I don't see a generator. How are they playing those in the middle of nowhere? Now, I don't know if this was a deliberate choice, but to have ineffectual teenagers just like dancing to the event but not really doing anything to change it. And I don't know if that's a slight against activism and how it's never truly as effective as people want it to be, which is a shame because we definitely need activism, especially in this terrible day and age of ours. But or it's just meant to be kind of an ironic thing that kind of passed the filmmaker's intent. Oh god, to meet Yatsumitsu Banno and just pick his brain about some of the decisions in this movie. Now, I've had friends ask me what the heck is up with the fishermen looking like, and I think that was definitely deliberate, that the fishermen whose livelihoods were based on nature that has been ruined because of Hedorah, and from an older generation are just looking at this younger generation not realizing, yeah, things are screwed up and this is not the way to go about it. And the fishermen coming off more like ghosts, regretful ghosts, I think that's a really neat touch. Of course, anybody watching this movie without any context is wondering, are those ghosts? What's going on? So, on the other hand, I just realized maybe they actually wanted to join the protest or the march of 1 million. But when they finally got there, taking the long way around, and they saw these dancing teenagers, like, this is not what we were expecting. Also, why are we holding flashlights underneath our faces? Okay. Alright, I'm going to read some comments. Yeah, Instance, just say it out loud. On the stream in public. No, not Phil in the art house, but close. Not full on art house, but close as Insectoid Comics. Alright. We need a ROM space. Okay. Kaiju, Kina Kaiju. I hope we get a modern Godzilla movie that is as artistic as versus Hedorah. I know Shin Godzilla at moments got close to that, but Adam West would be proud. Okay. Godzilla Kina Monsters. They were fishermen. Thought they were ghosts looking onward at disapproval at what those teens were doing. No, if you watch the movie from the beginning and notice their fisherman friend who visits them with the first tadpole Hedorah, he's in the group with the others. Although that would be a much cooler element if there were actual real ghosts in this movie. So, but then the movie would probably get a little too weird, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's the main fisherman from the beginning of the movie, along with a couple of fisherman friends. If you're hearing a little bell, that's because I got a dog near my feet. Alright, so the final showdown is beginning on a desolate Mount Fuji, and this is probably one of my all-time favorite giant monster fights, because it's prolonged, it has a lot of great music, and the introduction of Hedorah here just one-ups Godzilla. He comes out as this silhouette with the menacing red eyes, and then here he comes in his full glory, shining and sprinkling in his final form. And although you can't tell, because it is just like there's no frame of reference, That Hedorah costume was gigantic because you got to remember, Haru Nakajima was a kind of a short person at 5 feet. So that Hedorah costume was massive because he's with Godzilla's head, he's probably a full 6 feet. So compare that to the Hedorah suit, we're looking at something like 8 to 9 feet in height. So in fact, I know I was just going to stick to this one image, but I do have a behind the scenes image of Hedorah with the effects staff, and if it's working, I think I'm going to play it. Oh, there we are. Yeah, you can tell how big that Hedorah suit was in compared to like regular human beings. We're talking like some Halloween concert costume stuff going on here. So, all right. Insectoid Comics, very creative fight. That is true. Rift the Witch. Hedorah, when you get right down to it, is a sheet phantom made of poison. Yes, Hedorah, the greatest monster born from Lydia's sheets. Wait, was Lydia the mother or the daughter from Beetlejuice? Oh, whatever. That's a great looking costume. And just how big. And I think that's Ken Satsuma. No relation to Ken, our lead kid hero. Inside the monster suit in there. And apparently he had a really horrible time dealing with it. Although I think it has less to do with the suit being uncomfortable than it was the fact that his appendix was in great pain. And allegedly, when he needed his appendix to be taken out, the doctors had no choice but to literally do the surgery with him in the monster suit. I don't know how true that is. That may just be Ken Satsuma just being hyperbolic and angry at the same time. But Kina Kaiju, what did they use to make Hedorah? And oh hell, that's 7 feet tall. No thanks. Yeah, I always wanted to make my own Hedorah costume and do like the proper size to it too, with like a very large head that would sit on my shoulders. And I thought about doing one for G-Fest when I visited this year, but then I realized, do I really want to be hauling something that massive, especially since the one person who was taking a car to G-Fest did not want anything through the mail at all. So thanks for nothing, he who shall remain nameless. Cough, cough, Branson Films, cough. So, and of course Hedorah kills off 100 teenagers here. Yeah, it is pretty scary how Hedorah directly kills human beings as opposed to indirectly like most giant monsters. Although whether the creature meant to do that on purpose is unknown. It's weird how Hedorah is definitely one of the more alien kaiju in his personality. He isn't just a wild animal going crazy on everybody, which I guess would... And he's not as character personalities filled as, say, Slapstick Gigan and Megalon in Godzilla vs. Megalon. But he seems like a weird mix between sadistic, malicious child and generally curious and easily dumbfounded animal. So it makes him a very interesting villain. Like, he's not, like, I think Wikizilla said it best. He's not a deliberately malicious creature, but the fact that he lives in a world of death makes him dangerous regardless. And of course, his ineffective sequence of people throwing torches at giant monsters. I know that a real viewer would be like, oh, that's stupid. Who would do that? Throw torches at a giant monster that can survive missiles. But if giant monsters were real and people were pissed off enough, yeah, they would do ineffective attacks like this. So now, if the giant monster was like a Ray Harryhausen creature, yeah, torches might work. But yeah, as they say in War of the Worlds, bows and arrows against the lightning, flaming torches against the massive sludge monster from space. Now, it's interesting to bring up that the character, apparently that was Ken's older brother who got killed, and unceremoniously so. And throughout the movie, he's been kind of a non-entity. So, before I continue my thoughts on Ken's supposed dead brother, I will say, as a kid, I was always kind of upset that the 3 cute Japanese teenage girls just standing next to Ken here supposedly die in that sequence. Although they may have just ducked and then ran away to safety, so... There I go again, falling in love with incidental characters in the background. And of course, Hedorah's bizarre jumping / levitation abilities give him the ability to poop all over our heroes. It's funny, Hedorah is a creature made of sludge, trash, and waste, and yet You know, I really don't see any poop jokes thrown into this creature. He's just so weird and alien that the toilet humor just completely passes me whenever a less intelligent viewer does that kind of crap. And it is cool, like the body line. Like Ken Satsuma hated this role, but he's clearly giving it his all and giving Hedorah a little bit of personality. So, Insectoid Comics, Hedorah, no relation to Hedron. It's funny you should say that. Before I decided not to do multiple images throughout this podcast, I did have one for Hedron that I was going to throw in just as kind of a gag. So, and I'll just do it now for you, Insectoid Comics. Riff the Witch says Hedorah is a kaiju version of Scumbag Steve or Jerry from Undertale. Okay. Insectoid Comics, Hedorah is a combination between Keaton, Ghidorah, and the Blob. Probably. That's a good way to put it. He looks like Cthulhu, too. That's something else I like. I love that Hedorah is a slime monster, but he's not really just a simple blob. They gave him a more unique design in that regard. It's like you can believe that's a liquid-based monster that can definitely, you know, fight you on hand-to-hand combat and muscle-wise, too. That is a wonderfully huge costume. And I love how Hedorah, despite being incredibly powerful, more than a match for Godzilla, he's not completely immune to attacks. The fact that his own acidic blood injured his own eyeball. So, although that might be seen as something that's kind of a contradictory plot hole. And it's like Guillermo del Toro brought up a really good point that if you want to keep your monster interesting throughout the whole movie, give it multiple forms and abilities, and don't reveal them all at once. Do it throughout the narrative. I think that's the reason why Otachi from Pacific Rim is like the coolest kaiju, even though she's personally not my personal favorite of the monsters. And she is definitely, she's pregnant, so I'll give you that. So, as a kid, it was always amazed me because Godzilla was like the major heavy or the hero in the other movies I saw, and in here, Godzilla is suffering terribly because of Hedorah's actions. So. And the Hedorah transformation sequence, that's a great mix between on-set lighting, special effects transitions, and animation effects. I love that they just went with like a bunch of psychedelic colors. So, whenever he transforms. You know, it's like this is a movie I appreciate more in my older age. Oh yeah, the 3 cute teenage girls that were standing in the background are definitely dead. And there's the fisherman again, looking all sad. Yeah, I think that's the main fisherman in the middle there, the one we saw earlier in the movie. Watching this final fight. Yeah, the fight scene is not overly energetic or filled with too much laser fights or beam spamming like in the Heisei Godzilla movies, but it is still a fairly brutal fight itself, and it moves at a slow but not lumbering pace. So it's almost like the kaiju equivalent of the smackdown that happens in They Live between Ronnie Piper and Keith Davis. Except if they spit acid and a fire at each other. Okay. Insectoid Comics. Do you still do art for Brendan Tenold? I do, but the last title card I did was kind of a failure in my personal opinion, and hopefully I can make up for it in another title card if I'm allowed to do another title card. But yeah, I totally understand why Brendan Tenold has brought in other artists. So, but we'll see what happens. So, okay. Why do you have pictures of my dad? I just thought I got tons of kaiju pictures. I got a flash drive here, which is nothing with monster pictures. Okay. Hedorah didn't need a beam attack. No, but long range weapons do help in a kaiju fight. So I love Anglius. Actually, Anglius does have a long range attack. That's rolling up in a ball and just hurling his body at people. Okay, Rift the Witch. Well, the upcoming scene is pretty universally known as the part where Hedorah takes a toxic shit on Godzilla. I like to think of it as a release of organs onto an enemy. Wait a minute, that still sounds pretty bad. So again, Hedorah is such a bizarre alien creature that I really don't see this as him literally taking a quote-unquote poop on anybody. It's just... It would be like if you were finding an alien who has the ability to take his skin off and regrow new skin and use his previous skin as a net. You know, something weird like that. So... Rift the Witch. Sweet, sweet release. So, by the way, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's sticking around with me. I'm sorry that the live stream failed at the first part. So, and like I said, I think I'm going to make a really cool podcast version of this, combining both halves. So, but just consider the failed first part of the podcast to be sort of the intro, and that this secondary podcast is the real deal. So, and here we have the, I think they're called the giant electrodes. So I think that's what their official names are. But yeah, I love these weapons because they're simplistic. They're not like other super weapons you find in Godzilla movies that are basically 2 degrees from being their own giant robots, like the Markalite satellites from the Mysterians, which are still really awesome. These giant laser shooting mobile satellites. I wish they were technically drones. It'd be so cool if we had more robots in that movie. Oh, that's a great shot, just showing the monster fight from the distance. Although at the same time it is a little poorly staged. It looks like Godzilla and Hedorah are literally kung fuing, hopping everywhere. So... that effect, on the other hand, isn't so good. Them rolling in the battle is really cool when it gets to the full costumes. When it's that the 2 little dummies going at each other, it's almost as bad as some of the lesser effects in Godzilla vs. King Kong, or King Kong vs. Godzilla, the first one. But no, I was going to say the giant electrodes, they're really cool because they're super weapons, but they feel like super weapons that could plausibly exist in the real world. And of course, the point of them is they are to dry out the larger Hedorah to make it easier for Godzilla to destroy. So, because I guess this super final form of Hedorah is too strong to be destroyed through regular methods, unlike the smaller tadpole ones. So, like I said, I love that these monsters are extremely powerful, but they're not invulnerable. So, like, there is a weakness to them, and I try and incorporate that with some of my own original characters. Like, yeah, these are incredibly powerful entities, but they do have certain weaknesses to them. And even knowing the movie has been accused of treating the military as a joke, I do still feel sorry for some of the poor guys who get killed in the crossfire here. Especially if it was a mistake on Godzilla's part here. So... no, it's funny. This is another case where they film in basically natural environment, but from various documentaries on the matter. Trying to create an outdoor model set for these giant monsters were not easy, especially when some of the earlier Showa movies where you literally had to create model trees or get real foliage from outside and make them into model trees, and they could only last for so long. This is a more barren set than what we'd be used to in the 60s films, but I like how they rearranged the rocks and some of the trees and other model elements to make it look like that Godzilla and Hedorah are fighting over a wide distance and landscape. And I just love this weird fisheye lens thing they do, just to show like the monsters are larger than... it doesn't work at all as far as a realistic perspective shot, but it's just a really cool artistic weirdness that just pops into in the middle of the battle. Insectoid Comics says, I think the scene was the origin of Minya. This is female Zilla. Okay. I knew Minya had some Hedorah in him. Okay. Rift the Witch says, I love the general here who is just losing his mind over the plan, constantly having setbacks. Yeah. Doesn't anything go right today? By the time they get to the electrodes working, he seems that he's a second away from sobbing. Yeah, he is not the actor who piloted the Atragon, that's for sure, who usually played the stock military types. So again, I want to thank the even knowing this this is a secondary live stream, I want to thank the 6 people watching for joining me here. And I'm sorry that the first live stream didn't work out so well. So. And of course, Hedorah being easily duped by a couple of I don't know. Oh, I need a moment to think. A lot of people have criticized the music, and yeah, there has been way better musical scores in other Godzilla movies, and I would argue even worse. But actually, no, I take that back. Even the lesser Godzilla movies have always had really good soundtracks to them, even if they were derivative. I think easily the worst soundtrack would probably be Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. But that's not saying much because the music in it is unoriginal, but still very bombastic and well done for what it is. And to be honest, I think I like the weird music, the score that's being done for this film, as opposed to, say, Godzilla vs. Megalon, where the music does get a little too comical for its own good, although it does match the proceedings. And also, they're doing that thing in Japanese monster movies where the model effects they have a limited amount of space, so they make one Electro way bigger than the one in the distance. Usually that kind of model work works. They give that kind of forced perspective to make the scene look even bigger than it is. But here I think it doesn't work so well. And apparently these giant Electros are supposed to be as tall as the monsters themselves. So, Insectoid Comics, I like the music. I thought if you got struck by lightning, you became a magnet. One day I'll put my theory to the test. I almost got hit by lightning once, by the way. We were spending time with our great-great-grandmother in Mosquito during the early 90s. Mosquito is a small town in New Mexico. It's pretty off the map. And then there was a massive lightning storm going on, and there was a power failure. And I noticed there was a weird light coming in from another room. So I went out. So I went to pick up a full steel flashlight, and it was red hot. And apparently, the lightning hit the house, somehow bypassed the roof without setting on fire, and went straight into this flashlight. A flashlight that I was only a couple of feet away that I missed. So yeah, I came very close to getting hit by lightning because that was a flashlight I was holding earlier in the rainy night. I had a late friend of mine, Mark Tucker. He got hit by lightning directly, and he said it was the weirdest experience. It was like it's not like being hit by like a small electric shock, you would feel that as an instant pain, but being hit by lightning is like being pushed down by a giant invisible hand, and then you just instantly going numb, both mentally and physically, for a long time to come. So if you survive it, great, but yeah, it's like being pushed by a giant invisible hand, is the way my late friend Mark Tucker used to say. So, and Hedorah is coming close to the giant electrodes. Is the power back on? 5 minutes more. We can't wait 5 minutes. We need it now. Oh my God. I should just do a live reading of the subtitles. Only 30 seconds ago. I need more time. I'm going to take a prolonged drink break here. This is probably the only scene in the whole movie that doesn't fully work. It's very atmospheric, it's very cool with the music and the close-ups of Hedorah, but it does go on a little too long. Hedorah loves headlights. That's what this whole section of the movie is. But even up close, the costume looks fantastic. It's funny, I've seen enough monster movie props in person to know that in face-to-face reality, the suits look fake. You can see the ridges, you can see the fakeness of this, and this is even for like high-end Hollywood props that were just made yesterday. I've attended a lot of conventions and some movie showings here that had the props on hand. But in the realm of film, not counting digital HD versions, a lot of that fakeness is covered up, and you can believe these monsters are real. So, especially with how close the creature gets. Godzilla comes to save the day to use his atomic breath to activate the giant electrodes. Of course, in real life, if Godzilla used his atomic breath on the giant electrodes, they probably explode, and Godzilla would be like, "Oops," and that military general would probably have just like, "Screw it, I'm done, I'm out." All right, Insectoid Comics says, "I like the music. I like Space Godzilla was a film that got me back into Godzilla." You tend to forget that Godzilla is so heavily damaged in this movie that you can literally see the bone on his hand. That is a deliberate choice, and now seen in this HD on this HD TV screen, yeah, my God, Hedorah does a lot of damage to Godzilla. Like, Godzilla suffers greatly at the hands of equally more terrible monsters. Like, I think Destroyer wins hands down by literally slicing the poor monster in half, and yet Godzilla's so tough, he just kind of holds himself together through will alone. But yeah, the fact that Godzilla has a skeletal hand thanks to Hedorah is pretty nasty. Riff the Witch says, Godzilla has been roughed up before, but this is one of the few times he looks just sincerely used up. That is a great way of putting it. Riff the Witch, you and I got it. Next time I do a live stream, I'm going to double check my equipment. I'm going to bring you aboard. So you have just a wonderful vocabulary and way of describing things. So now, Godzilla just pulled out these weird orbs, and he activated the giant electrodes to destroy them. Now, some people say these are eggs, revealing that Hedorah is about to reproduce and make more of his kind through methods beyond just a gestalt combination of lesser Hedorahs. Other people said that was his eyeballs, and if you hang out with a really stupid uncle who makes really crappy dad jokes, it's probably his cojones. There you go. If you're still in the chat section, Brayton, that one was for you. But yeah, I think those were supposed to be, according to Yotsumitsu Banno and the effects team, those were supposed to be eggs showing that Hedorah is about to reproduce through more natural means and create more of his kind. And also, it's great. I love that Hedorah freaks out Godzilla by like hiding, like what elements of him that wasn't dried out and destroyed in the husk of his main body. He escapes out, literally playing dead by hiding in his own dried up corpse and coming out as a lesser depowered version of Hedorah, forcing Godzilla to infamously bend his tail and fly. How do I feel about flying Godzilla? As a little kid, the scene is a lot of fun, but it's definitely the breaking of the camel's back, jumping the shark, nuking the fridge moment of this movie. Because before then, it's like this movie had a good mix of like the wacky and the seriousness, and here we just go into full-on wackiness mode. Say what you will about Godzilla's wacky gravity-defying drop kick on Megalon in the Godzilla vs. Megalon, but that works in the context of a movie that's already pretty slapsticky, and for a film that's been as dark and as atmospheric as this, the decision to make Godzilla fly, I think, was definitely a poor one. Although, apparently there's a alternate version that's been lost where Godzilla just runs down Hedorah. But that's the question. It would have been better to have Godzilla just run on foot chasing after Hedorah, which would seem unrealistic, like somebody trying to chase a speeding car just on foot. Or does it make sense that we keep to flying Godzilla in order to gain up with flying Hedorah? I don't know. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And speaking of defying physics, we got the classic Godzilla throwing of the tail, which, if you really think about it, would not work at all in real life. I tried. I once wrestled a kangaroo, and it didn't work. Don't ask. That's a story between me and the kangaroo, Jimmy the kangaroo. All right, Insectoid Comics says, damn it, get me on the exquisite event, on this exquisite event. Riff the Witch, and here we are, the scene that defined a generation. All right. Insectoid Comics, I gotta get on a stream. What does it take? Since you're kind of a new acquaintance, it'll take a little while, but maybe a chat, and then we'll see what goes on from there. So this channel. Oh, what the heck, I enjoy you in the chat section anyways. So Godzilla runs like M11. Riff the Witch, yeah, I think we dodged a bullet. Again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you want Godzilla flying in the air to goofy music, or do you want Godzilla to be running like Tetsu the Iron Man, or the Monty Python, or Benny Hill after his target? So, and I love how we've definitely defeated Hedorah's final form thanks to the first round with the giant electrodes. So it was smart for them just to return to Hedorah's more tadpole frog-like lesser land form. So. What's wrong? The fuse isn't working. What's wrong with everybody? And I just love this little moment, like Godzilla's like, oh, do I have to do everything myself? So now little moments of comedy like that I can handle. But it's like, it's amazing watching this movie. Haru Nakajima is inside this huge piece of rubber. And admittedly, this even knowing that this is a really cool looking Godzilla, it's clearly an old Godzilla suit that's seen better days. It's a holdover from Destroy All Monsters. And yet the body language Haru Nakajima, even though it's played mostly for laughs, adds to this Godzilla costume, really is a testament to his acting. So unfortunately, most people who just don't like monster movies in general won't notice the subtlety there. Here I am talking like Roger Ebert over a Felucci movie or something. For something as oddball as Godzilla vs. Hedorah. I think I'm enjoying this movie way more because I'm watching it with friends right now. Or fans, or watchers. Or to any future people who'll be enjoying this. And of course, Hedorah is not fully dead. There's still remnants of him, however non-sentient. And then Godzilla just pulls it out and looks at it with disgust. So, and starts pulling it all out. I love how this desperate battle is far from over, but they still play this kind of awesome music over it. We're just not really awesome, but it is weird enough. God is dead. Return. God is dead. Riff the Witch. Ivan! I don't get it. And he uses the giant electrode to finally end what's left of Hedorah, so. Yeah, I love how Hedorah, unlike most giant monsters, he doesn't get killed in like a spectacular explosion or in like one final Megazord-style power sword destruction. Hedorah just, you really have to kill Hedorah. It's almost like something out of like a latter era Hitchcock movie or a Coen Brothers films where, you can't kill the villain easily. You got to really put all your effort into it, and it'll just like your whole climax is trying to kill off this one villain. So it's not that he's evading death, he's just that hard to kill. If I was Godzilla, though, I'd probably activate the electrodes a little more. I always liked how this has always been a neat scene. It's like, it's not exactly scary, but it definitely kind of shocks you a moment. Because I think this is the first time Godzilla has had any interaction with humans after becoming a good guy, or directly. So here he is looking at all these monsters. Because Godzilla's not officially a full-blown superhero yet. So when he sees the little humans and gives them the stink eye there, it's like, and I don't know if that's like Godzilla just like, oh, you people. Nah. I can't deal with you right now. I've had enough. I'm going home. Or if this is Godzilla literally like, you guys are semi-responsible for this monster. But it's an uneasy alliance, I think, is what's the main point of this. And this is one of the few Japanese monster movies, or giant monster movies in general, where humans and monsters work together to defeat the main villain. To be fair, though, I've seen it done better in other fiction, like Ultraman Gaia, Gamera vs. Jiger, and the Kiru movies. There are films where humans and monsters working together against another threat are done a lot better. But at the same time, I do like that it's done here. Like, yeah, Godzilla was the main muscle, but mankind, with their scientific prowess, thanks to the scientists who suffered from Hedorah's early attacks, finally put an end to this beast. Of course, as this montage and somber music with the chorus states, yeah, it's the pollution problem is far from fixed. So, as much as I love seeing Godzilla walk across the rising sun with that sky mat, you can easily see like a big black Apache stain in the back there. Like, there it is. Yeah. It's like that's definitely a sky mat. Followed by by another not so good shot of optical effects with see-through Godzilla climbing over, oh my god. Not all the effects can be winners here, even on an artistic level, ladies and gentlemen. So Godzilla gets attacked by the giant ape from the giant Korean ape from Ape. I was gonna say earlier, yeah, the brother is unceremoniously killed, and he's not really treated as an entity throughout this film. So, and throughout the movie, he's pretty flippant against the horrible things that are happening. So I guess Ken, and it's not like Ken. This isn't like Ken asking Godzilla to come back or anything. But I guess this is like just Ken telling Godzilla thanks, like kind of a Shane moment for there. And I also love the little touch that, yeah, they're not alone. They actually have a military escort with this one random guy, because that would happen in real life again. It's neat little details like that that gives this movie extra oomph, in my opinion. So on that, we end on a truly bittersweet note. Godzilla is victorious, the day is saved, but like the original film, it's not all perfect because there might be another Hedorah out there. And I love the sky mat, like the perspective they put where they have clouds in the foreground and some in the distance. It makes it look much deeper than it already is. The end. Or is it? So, yeah. So there we go. Godzilla vs. Hedorah, a Japanese monster movie I keep finding myself falling in love with every time I watch it, especially around Christmas Eve. And what time is it on my end? It is 1 a.m., ladies and gentlemen. Santa Claus is going to be here any moment, and I'm going to attack him. So I'm going to get that fat man. But let's see what's in the comments right now. Godzilla is never going through this again, says Riff the Witch. He's going to feel like hell in the morning, but this is getting done tonight. Very good. I used to do construction tile, and there were some days where we stood until like 9 o'clock at night just to get the job finished. So, one moment, ladies and gentlemen. I have a little dog that needs to go outside and do the Hedorah on the grass. So, go ahead and send any final questions before we wrap this thing up. Okay, I'm coming back. Okay. Insectoid Comics says, "In Shoma, I will talk to you when I finish the comic. Then I can split references on your channel." Okay, yeah. No, I'll talk to you sometime in the future. So, but you are a new acquaintance, so let's just give it time, my friend. So, Ape is an amazing film, says you, Insectoid Comics, and it's 2 a.m. exactly. You must be in the neighboring time zone to California. Insectoid Comics question: what do you think of The Howling? I've never seen the original Howling movie. The only Howling movie I've seen has been Howling 3, and personally I can't stand that movie for various reasons. But that was like so long ago when I just caught the Howling 3 late one night on television. And even in an edited form, I didn't much care for it. I just thought it was a little too silly and stupid for its own good. Which is a shame because one of the lead actors in it is the Arthur Grant from Ultraman Towards the Future. I love Ultraman Towards the Future, so... Okay. Maybe I will check out The Howling eventually. I do need to brush up on my werewolf cinema. And I think Riff the Witch, you're a big fan of werewolves, too. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, there it was. The watch-along for Godzilla vs. Hedorah. We had some major difficulties in the beginning, and I deeply apologize for that. But, yeah, consider this second video to be the full audio commentary, despite that I was going gangbusters in the first one. But yeah, I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I really just wanted this to be one condensed video, and it looks like that's not going to happen. But like I said, I think I'll combine both live streams into a podcast version and like just show off tons of different Hedorah images throughout the whole thing, as opposed to the limited number that I got away with tonight. But with that said, I want to thank... Yeah, there's 7 people watching right now. I know some of you might not be able to chat in the section, but I want to thank you guys for sticking around me, and your comments definitely kept me going. Like, I always enjoy this movie. Like, I'll tell you about this. I don't know. For the longest time, I feared that the only reason I liked Japanese monster movies was a nostalgic thing. Growing up with these things and watching them over and over again as a kid, but not having any real artistic ability to see artistic merit in film. I need a lot of water. My mouth is perched. But revisiting a lot of these older monster movies, whether they be the fantasy films of Ray Harryhausen or the Japanese monster films from the golden age of the 60s. Yeah, there's a lot of things about these films that still hold up for me immensely. And I'm a lover of bombastic fantasy cinema. And even though we've had things like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and the Marvel films and tons of animated films in the recent decades, something about the Japanese monster movies still stand out at just how bold and bombastic they are. Yes, they are not underrated pieces of extreme cinema merit that needs to be rediscovered by the Ghost of Pauline Kael, but at the same time, they are way better than people give them credit for and consistently good in their own wacky right. I don't think there is, other than maybe the very first Gojira, I don't think any of these Japanese monster movies are true 4-star cinema. But as a whole, as a full-on entity, like billions of little tadpole hedoras mixed into one giant conglomerate, these films definitely hold up, and this is why I love this franchise so much. And it's it's fantastic, and I'm so glad you guys joined me tonight. Insectoid Comics has one final question. Have you seen Darkman 2? If so, I think there has been much more interesting. Durant was resurrected through photons tech, turning him into sort of a vampire. Spoilers there. I saw a little bit of Darkman 2 when I was a little kid. It was airing on Showtime. And I did like how they kind of kept to, even though it was clearly a dumbed down version of the first Darkman because it was a straight to video release, they were still doing some of that really cool direct to video 90s entertainment, trying to bring in their own style into the movie. In fact, there's a lot of really good movies that were directly released to video in the 90s, as opposed to today where it just all looks the same. Just, really crappy direction, has-been actors, and stupid CGI monsters. Your Sci-Fi Channel of the Week. Riff the Witch says, I think our culture is way too wrapped up in trying to make movies and fiction stand above the others, that there's some objective quality that determines their quality. We're so focused on justifying our enjoyment, we're forgetting just to enjoy it. That is true. I think that's, as much as I love the Marvel movies, but it does feel like there's way too much meta referencing and laughing, too much meta referencing of the material. We can't have a moment where we can just stand in awe and wonder or enjoy the insanity that's happened. We got to cut back to a character saying, "Oh, this is silly and ridiculous," or even if it could be something as subtle as Captain America about to say "Avengers Assemble," but then it just cuts halfway because heaven forbid we have him say something that cheesy. And to be fair, had he said the whole thing, Avengers Assemble, we probably would cut to the Avenger secondary team going did you just seriously say what you just said? So, and I also think that's one of the reasons nobody can do a Superman movie anymore. They don't embrace the fantasy elements and just the full-on adventure qualities of Superman. They always got to bring it down to a more realistic Batman-style level of believability. But yeah, with Japanese monsters, I'm glad that even when Japanese monster movies try to be realistic, like Shin Godzilla, they still go there. They still ring that bell, as Mel Brooks go, as far as imagination and fantasy goes. And I think Godzilla vs. Hedorah is a really, like I said, it's a very good movie stuck in between the crossroads of what would the 70s would be infamous for and what the 60s were praised for. Unfortunately, because I think this movie is it's not a chaotic mess. I've seen way worse movies from the 60s that tried to accomplish similar things to Hedorah, just on lower budgets and with way worse direction. The monster of the god monster of Indian Flats. I think that with the mutant sheep monster, you guys probably know what I'm talking about in the comment section. The god monster of Indian Flats or something like that. That movie tried to do what Hedorah did, but on a much lower scale and with worse direction. And I appreciate some of the social commentary issues they brought into the movie, but at the same time, Yeah, it failed miserably, and when it got artistic, it just seemed like a Thor. It's just like a Thor out of nowhere element that just got out of nowhere, came out from out of nowhere. I am tired. My throat is parched. Mm. This live stream has been brought to you by water. Okay, guys, if you Riff the Witch, my boyfriend lives God Monster. Okay, so you absolutely know what I'm talking about then. Insectoid Comics, I love Aegon the Atomic Dragon. I only seen the first episode. It was kind of a slog for me to get through. That was like Varan, but 10 times even more boring for me, at least. Rift the Witch, I have to ask you, why does your boyfriend love God Monster of Inden Flats? Insectoid Comics, I highly recommend the film From Beyond, an underrated Lovecraft film. I like Beyond quite a bit, but at the same time, I think a lot of the overt sexual elements thrown in kind of keeps that movie from being truly fun. And also, it'd be nice to have a H.P. Lovecraft movie that's not only a period piece, but also kind of takes itself a little more straight-faced, and itself being kind of like a gory comedy or like a sex-crazed nightmare feel stuff that the Stuart Gordon movies were infamous for. But I'm a big fan of From Beyond. I'm a big fan of Reanimator, especially after rewatching Reanimator. Though that's a really good movie, a darkly comical slapstick comedy with super zombies in it. Although the scene with the severed head, and you know which one I'm talking about, that I could have done without. And I'm into some weird kinky crap on my end, so. Insectoid Comics says, bye, been a big fan. And I'm happy to have you here at Insectoid Comics. Thank you. Rift the Witch says, because it's weird and unsettling, and he appreciates what it's trying to be, even if it falls flat. Yes, it does definitely fall flat. See you later, giant monster alligator. Actually, my main character is like sort of a weird dragon creature, but yeah, I guess from a distance it does look like an alligator. And go ahead and leave your final thoughts or questions. We'll be wrapping this up in a couple of minutes. Godzilla King of Kaiju, if you're still there, thanks for joining us. It was really cool having you here. Thank you, Insectoid Comics, and Rift the Witch for being my co-hosts through the live chat. Let me get this dog and then say my final farewells. Little doggy. Come on. You have a whole couch to yourself. Why do you want to wrap yourself in blankets, you miniature pincher? Between having a Chihuahua and a mini pin, it's like having two little Baragons, especially this miniature pincher, because they were dogs that were infamous for burrowing and trying to get at prey, and this is a dog that loves to burrow into blankets. So yeah, should have called him. His name is Simcoe. We should have called him Baragon. So, okay, Insectoid Comics. Your last question is, what do you think of Creepshow? I adore Creepshow. It's one of the best comic book movies never based on a comic book, and and I've always loved horror comedies, probably because the comedy element compensates for the horrific elements, because I'm not a big horror fan, but it's just a great movie, and I agree with certain people, even people I hate, that Creepshow is possibly the best movie George Romero has ever made, and possibly the best Stephen King movie ever made too. So, Rift the Witch. Any idea what we're planning on watching next time when you do one of these? I'm going to try to stick to more mainstream movies. But if you guys want to leave some suggestions in the comment section outside the chat box, by all means. Because there's a lot of obscure monster movies and fantasy films I'd love to watch with everybody. But because of their nature being obscure, it's really hard to get people onto the watch-along. Maybe I'll do Teenagers from Outer Space as a safe bet, because I actually do like Teenagers from Outer Space quite a bit, even knowing although that's definitely a more hard sell than Godzilla vs. Hedorah here. Insectoid Comic, do Freaked. If there's a good YouTube version of it, I will, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll do another Godzilla movie I really enjoy. Frankenstein Conquers the World, maybe. We'll see. So. But with that said, I'm going to end this live chat now. So thank you, everybody, so much. Oh, Space Invaders. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Space Invaders. Okay, that's enough. I got to end this before it continues. So I'm not going to end it right away, though. I'm going to play some goodbye music direct from the movie itself. I was going to play Save the Earth or Return the Sun. But I decided just to end the kind of ending music because it feels like a good note to end this whole thing on. So, and plus, also, if I end up getting a copyright strike, at least YouTube will end the stream at the end of the stream, as opposed to now. So, yeah, we're going to end with some classy monster music. And yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry for the technical hiccups at the beginning. I am definitely going to be on top of it next time. But yeah, I think I might do Teenagers from Outer Space just as an experiment. And that's pretty much it. So, thank you, everybody, and I will talk to you later. Good night. So...
なけりゃなく